The time is at hand.
The elusive dog-like creature attacks livestock, bleeding them dry of blood.
8 to 10 feet tall, shadowy aliens.
The appearance of a mysterious monolith.
Making it rain by zapping clouds.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen.
Well, hey there. Welcome to In Dark Places. I'm your Huckleberry, Junebug Fugit. I guess it's October now. Where's time going now? Wasn't it March like 2 weeks ago? What happened? Here in America, the presidential election is like a month away now. Or as I like to refer to it, WrestleMania. That's what it is. Politics is just like professional wrestling. It's all scripted. It's all planned ahead of time. They already know who the winner is. Presidents are selected, not elected. But still, people get all worked up over this kind of nonsense. It's actually at an all-time high. Remember back when you were a kid? And if you didn't like the president, you still respected him and applauded him and stuff. Now they boo him off the stage and everything. And it's pretty much illegal to have a friend who is from the opposite party. Like you're a Democrat and your colleague and someone you work with is a Republican or whatever. And then you two just go at odds with each other and fight and stuff. Crazy times. And it's planned that way. The powers that be want to keep you opposing the other side. There's the good side and the bad side. The Democrats, the Republicans, the blacks, the whites. They're just all about division. Divide and conquer. And I would say that we are fairly conquered right about now. I always heard that you're not supposed to talk about two things. Religion and politics. And we try to kind of steer clear of those here on the show. We don't like to divide and conquer you. Can't we all just get along?
Holy mackerels, this is breaking news. Out of Howell, Michigan, a 12-year-old boy died after he was struck by a tree that fell at a southeastern Michigan nature center where he and his classmates were on a field trip, authorities said. Declan Carter was at the Howell Nature Center when the tree fell and struck him in the head Thursday afternoon, the Livingston County Sheriff's Office said. The boy was airlifted to a hospital where he later died. The boy was a student at Our Lady of Victory Catholic School in Northville, and he was taking part in an overnight camping trip at the Nature Center, located about 55 miles northwest of Detroit. Sheriff Michael Murphy said chaperones were teaching the children how to make a fire when they heard a loud cracking, prompting members of the group to take off running before the 20-foot tall tree with a rotted trunk fell onto the boy, hitting him on the head. I have no words other than it's a tragic accident that just makes absolutely no sense, Murphy told WXYZ-TV. Declan was a son of Northville City Council member John Carter, the mayor said. Howell Nature Center CEO Tina Bruce said the center was gathering all the facts and working closely with the authorities and our staff to understand what happened today. The freaking tree fell, Tina! I escalated. She said the Nature Center would be closed Friday so staff can come together and process today's events. Our thoughts and prayers are with the child and their family during this difficult time, Bruce said in a statement. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you, Jimmy Haunted. Here's one of my favorite topics from the Haunted Chronicles. Clowns. Creepy clown spotted roaming around on bridge over Florida highway. Where else, naturally, is Florida? by Tim Banal. Thanks, Tim. Motorists cruising down a highway in Florida yesterday undoubtedly did a double take at the bizarre sight of a creepy mallet-wielding clown that roamed around on a pedestrian bridge before fleeing the scene when cops arrived. According to a local media report, the strange scene occurred on Tuesday morning when the haunting Harley Quinn appeared on a walkway that spans the Palmetto Expressway in Miami-Dade County. To the surprise and confusion of commuters passing below, the creepy clown lingered on the bridge for quite some time, pacing back and forth while twirling a sizable mallet. The peculiar performance ended when the mysterious stranger caught sight of the cops as they arrived on the scene. In true phantom clown fashion, the Harley Quinn managed to deftly escape the overpass before they could encounter him, vanishing into the proverbial ether and leaving police on the pedestrian bridge scratching their heads. Authorities have since asked the public to pass along any information they might have about the mysterious stranger, who one can only hope has not unleashed another election year clown wave on us all. This week on the show we have a little bit of variety, a little something for everyone. This is the Fall Festival. I don't know. We have ghost stories and UFOs and dogman. One of the first dogman sightings to take place around the Great Lakes took place in the Wisconsin city of Racine, right on the western coast of Lake Michigan, and very near to the border of Illinois. A man by the name of Mark Shackelman was working as a night watchman for the St. Coletta Convent in 1936. One night during his rounds, Shackelman saw a canine-looking, black-furred, and carrion-smelling creature with what he described as long claws. The dogman was kneeling and scratching at an indigenous people's burial ground near the convent, but he fled as soon as Shackelman approached to investigate. He returned the next day only to find footprints and claw marks, although apparently 2 of the fingers seemed to be withered from what the night watchman could tell from the markings. Shackelman, scheduled to work 2 nights in a row, went back the next night, and once again he witnessed the creature scratching around at the mound. However, this time, the animal didn't run away. It stood up, 6 feet tall, and made eye contact with Shackelman. And then it spoke. It was only one word, though less of an actual word and more of a name. Gadara. The night watchman summoned up his courage and refused to run away. He simply maintained eye contact before praying to God, turning around and walking slowly away. The dogman sneered at Mark, still staring menacingly, but didn't move. Mark Shackelman never saw the creature again, though he did often smell the dead meat scent. Here's something you don't really want to see. A maintenance worker made a discovery one morning in 2018 in the women's restroom in a shopping center in central Calgary, Alberta. He removed a wall panel to repair a toilet that would not flush, and he found a body of an adult male. Police have not yet determined the cause of death. Despite the circumstances where the body was located, investigators do not suspect foul play, and the death remains classified as undetermined, police said in a statement. Calgary fire services were called in to remove the body. Calgary police spokesperson Emma Poole told In Dark Places they believe it is possible that someone was crawling through a vent or duct and fell from above and became stuck behind the wall. So it's obviously something they would be looking at is someone crawling through the ventilation system, she said. Authorities say that the man was alone when he entered the restroom in a Calgary city center shopping mall. They believe that he climbed behind a short wall to a vent shaft and got stuck and died on the evening of Friday, April 27th, 2018. His motivation for crawling behind the wall remains a mystery. It is believed that the victim climbed on top of a short pony wall, which was directly behind the toilets, and removed the vent cover, which was located on top of the wall, police said. The pony wall used to hide utilities is approximately 7 feet tall. It is not connected to the ceiling and has no other access points. Based on evidence, police say they believe the man climbed inside the wall through the vent. His identity has not been released, and police say they will not send out any further information because the death is considered accidental.
In 1999, Providence, Rhode Island received the new Providence Place Mall. Artist Michael Townsend uncovered a hidden, irregularly shaped area in the bustling commercial mall. Intrigued, he began to consider its potential. 4 years later, facing the demolition of his beloved Fort Thunder, a local artist collective, Michael and his companions devised a daring strategy. They chose to transform the concealed room into a secret residence as a sign of resistance to increasing commercialism. Michael and his buddies spent the following 4 years carefully transforming the abandoned room into a functional living place. They moved trash, constructed temporary furniture, and even set up a water supply from the local movie theater. Their secret home, concealed in the center of the mall, became a haven for creativity and disobedience. Their secret life within the mall remained undisturbed until 2007. A chance interaction with a visiting artist led to the discovery by mall security. Despite being apprehended, Michael faced only minor punishment, demonstrating their ingenuity and tenacity. I want to live in a secret room in a mall. We could call it In Dark Places. Get it?
Synchronicity story. There's this weird, crazy, psycho chick that used to work at my store, and she was dating one of my friends. One day, her and my friend were riding up the road or something, and she opened up the door and pushed him out of the car and broke his ankle. And they obviously broke up after that. So, on October 1st, I was at work, and I hadn't seen Psycho Chick in like 3 years or something. And I was going kind of toward the door, and I saw a girl that looked like Psycho Chick, kind of from behind. She turned around, and I saw that it wasn't her. Like, oh, that's not her. And then later that night, I was cleaning up to get ready to go home, and Psycho Chick came to the door wanting to know if we had any rump roasts. I kid you not. The actual Psycho Chick that pushed my friend out of the car. She was in the store. So, crazy synchronicity. And there was another synchronicity a few days ago. Me and Brandon were listening to that band Velvet Revolver, super band with Stone Temple Pilots singer Scott Weiland and Guns N' Roses as the band. They had a couple albums out in the early 2000s. Good stuff. So I was listening to one of their albums with Brandon, and first time I'd listened to them in a few years. And I was remembering how much I liked them. A couple days later, I told my cousin Salazar about listening to Velvet Revolver and kind of rediscovering them and loving them again. And he started freaking out and said, man, I was just listening to them too and thinking the same thing. So what's with those synchronicities? Anyway, here comes a long story. Get you some popcorn, sit back and enjoy. This is a story by samhaysom on Reddit. The story about Bavs and Mr. Longfingers. Grandma told me about Mr. Longfingers one night after I asked her about baths. Grandma used to love to take her baths. She spent ages in them, light candles and incense, and lie in the tub humming to herself until the water turned cold. It drove my mom crazy, but when I asked her why she loved them so much, she said it was the only place she could relax. It was the only place that was safe for her to relax. You know, people like me, who are, well, more sensitive to certain things, we have to take baths, she told me seriously one night. shuffling closer on the bed. "I couldn't possibly spend that long in the shower. It'd be far too risky." Grandma stared at me with those blue eyes of hers, unsmiling, and I knew it was time for one of her stories. One of her scary stories. I shivered with pleasure and pulled the covers up to my chin. "Why is it risky, Grandma?" She half turned to look out the window, watching me from the corner of her eye, pausing for effect. I waited, feeling my heart rate pick up ever so slightly in my chest. "Well," she said after a moment, "it's only risky if you close your eyes, of course. If you lose your eyes for longer than 10 seconds. "Why, what do you mean?" "Well, do you ever play that game in the playground with your friends? The one where someone turns their back and the others sneak up on them while they're not looking?" Sounds like a fun game. I nodded, and Grandma nodded back. "Exactly. So that's what it's like in the shower when you have your eyes closed. That's what it's like with Mr. Longfingers." A cold itch tickled my back. "Who's Mr. Longfingers, Grandma?" "I think it's Freddy Krueger." "Is it Freddy?" She let out a deep breath, as if she wished she hadn't said anything, turned her head back to face mine, and when she next spoke, she lowered her voice. "No one knows exactly," Grandma whispered. "Some think it's a creature that's attracted to the heat and the smell we give off in there. Others think it's a demon that finds a way into our realm through the dense steam clouds. No one can say for sure, because the only ones who have actually seen Mr. Longfingers aren't going to be able to tell you." I pulled in a breath. "Why not?" Grandma shuffled closer along the bed and leaned toward me, leaving my question hanging in the air. "Don't you worry about it, sweetheart. Don't worry your pretty head. As long as you remember the rules, you'll be fine." "What rules?" "Well, when you're in the shower, you try not to close your eyes for too long. 5 seconds is fine, and 10 is just about okay too. But any longer than that..." "Yeah, then what?" "Well, any longer than that, then you just may start to feel something in the room with you. Something watching. And if you ever go longer than 15 seconds, that's when you might start to hear some noise." "Hear what?" "A soft tap, tap, tap of fingers on glass. Fingers drumming against the glass door of the shower. If you ever do hear that noise, God forbid, will you make me a promise?" "What, Grandma?" "Promise you'll never open your eyes." I barely slept that night. Hardly at all. I'd close my eyes and try to relax, but every time I did, I imagined a face pressed against my bedroom window staring at me. And when I did finally get to sleep, I had nightmares. Bad ones. I had them all week, in fact. Dreams about disembodied eyes watching me in the dark, and long fingers reaching out to touch my exposed skin. It wasn't any better when I was awake either, not really. The shower was the worst. That's when my grandma's story really got to me. I never thought about it before, but suddenly I had trouble shutting my eyes in there. These people sleep in the shower and stuff? I don't get it. I'd be standing beneath the beating water, shampoo running down my face, and as soon as I squinted my eyelids closed, I'd hear Grandma's words running through my head. 5 seconds is fine, and 10 is just about okay too. But any longer than that, any longer than that, any longer than that... Oh, sorry. I'd rub my hair fast, feeling the shampoo dripping off my chin, and as soon as I'd continue past 5 seconds, I'd feel it. A sort of pressure. Not a feeling of being watched, exactly, but something close to that. I'd run my fingers faster and faster through my hair, frantically trying to get the suds out, and the ready blackness behind my closed eyes, coupled with the rush of water in my ears, would feel like a held breath, like the silence before a scream. The seconds would race through my mind, and I'd be so desperate to open my eyes again that I'd sometimes do it before my hair was rinsed fully clean, and my eyes would sting with shampoo. But before I shut them again, I'd always be sure to peer out through the stained glass door of the shower cubicle. just to make sure I was still alone. It wasn't long before Mom realized something was up. She heard me crying in my sleep one night, came in to comfort me, asked me what was the matter, and it all came out. I told her about Grandma's story and about Mr. Longfingers. She got this look on her face when I was telling her, like she used to get with me when I'd made her feel really bad. This wide-eyed, angry look. Only this time she wasn't angry with me, she was angry with Grandma. My parents' room was next to mine, and sometimes, if I pressed my ear against the wall, I could hear them talking in there. Soft whispers. That night, though, after Mom was satisfied I wasn't scared anymore, and she'd gone back to her room, the whispers weren't so soft at all. Oh no. I heard Mom hissing to Dad about Grandma, about the story she'd told me. Mom's voice floated through the wall, sharp and crisp. "You know what your mother said to him now, don't you, Simon?" Dad's response was an unintelligible mutter. "She's told him there's a monster in there, and if he shuts his eyes in the shower. A monster! The poor kid's been having nightmares about it all week. Seriously, Simon, you better say something to her tomorrow morning, first thing, or I will." Karen. Grandma came to visit with me in my room the following night. That time, as she perched at the end of the bed, there were no stories, nothing like that. Grandma just sat there and stared down at me, her blue eyes wide and sad. The light from the moon outside my window lit her wrinkled face. "You know I'd never let anything bad happen to you, don't you?" she said after a moment. I nodded my head. "I know, Grandma. You know I wouldn't let you come to any harm." I nodded again. "Okay, good. That's good." She looked away from me for a moment, out the window. "You know, the things I tell you in the evening are meant to help you, sweetheart. They're meant to toughen you up. Protect you." She paused and shook her head. "But maybe your Mom's right. Maybe I went a little too far this time." She looked down at me and smiled. But even then, even though I was only 10 years old, I could tell it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I tell you what," Grandma said. "You know what I told you about Mr. Longfingers in the shower? Well, I'm going to make sure you're safe. I'll scare him off. How about that? He won't come back in a hurry if he has to face me." I stared up at Grandma, watching her face glow in the moonlight, watching her smile down at me. I nodded my head once. I was the one who found her. I don't know when exactly it happened, but I guess it was about a week after we had that talk in my room. A week after she told me she wouldn't let me come to any harm. I woke up early that morning from a bad dream to a heavy thumping sound. I sat bolt upright in bed. My room was quiet around me, and I couldn't hear anything from the wall that joined my parents' room either. The house wasn't entirely silent. Floating down the hall, muffled by my closet door, I could hear the sound of rushing water, the noise of the shower. I leapt out of bed and ran down the upstairs hallway, heart pounding out of my chest. As soon as I reached the closed bathroom door, I started banging on it. A deep terror was swelling up inside of me, like cold water from a well, something I couldn't place, and kept banging and shouting, "Grandma!" over and over again, even though she didn't respond. Off to my right, I was dimly aware of voices from my parents' room, the sleepy shuffle of footsteps, but before they had a chance to make it out into the landing, I lifted my hand to test out the door handle, more out of instinct than because I thought it might actually open. But the door wasn't locked. I kept banging with my free hand and swung it suddenly inward, bringing me face to face with a wall of steam. Heat struck my skin. I squinted my eyes against the damp fog and peered into the bathroom. Before Dad pushed me to one side, before everything around me descended into shouting and tears and chaos, I saw her. I saw Grandma. She was lying naked on the floor in the shower cubicle, the water beating down around her, blue eyes bulging out from her face. One hand was curled against her chest like a dead bird, while the other trailed against the glass of the shower cubicle, the flailing finger marks she had carved through the steam still clear and fresh. It was a heart attack that killed her. That's what my dad told me. He said Grandma was old and the thing had struck her quickly and suddenly. She would have died fast and without pain, Dad said. She wouldn't have suffered. I knew better, though. Even as a 10-year-old kid, I knew better. And years later, writing this as an adult, I still know better. I also know my wife and kids resent me for refusing to have a shower in the house, for insisting everyone take baths. They pretend it's okay, and they humor me, but I can tell they don't really understand it. Not at all. My wife thinks she does. She thinks I still carry the trauma of seeing my grandmother dying in front of me when I was little. I guess she's right in a way, but she doesn't know the full truth. Nobody does. And no one would believe me even if I told them. No one would believe me if I said the reason I didn't take showers, the reason I haven't had one since I was 10 years old, isn't because I'm scared from the sight of a dead body. It's because all those years ago, when I crept back into the still hot bathroom after the paramedics had taken my grandma's body downstairs, I made sure to check the marks her fingers had carved through the steamed glass of the shower cubicle. And those marks weren't just on the inside.
This is a story from a friend of mine who unfortunately passed away last year. 2 men said they were abducted by aliens while fishing. 50 years later, the mystery lives on. Out of Pascagoula, Mississippi. The story of 2 men who said they were abducted by aliens while fishing on the Pascagoula River in Mississippi is now a 50-year-old legend. Charles Hickson and our friend Calvin Parker have since died, with Parker dying just 2 months ago. The story's older. But their story of allegedly being abducted by aliens on October 11th, 1973 lives on. Back in 1973, Hickson and Parker told the Jackson County Sheriff's Department that they were fishing off the bank of the Pascagoula River when they heard whizzing sounds and saw 2 blue flashing lights in an oval-shaped object. Parker and Hickson said that they were conscious but paralyzed, while 3 creatures took them aboard and examined them. Authorities also received dozens of phone calls that night about people claiming to have seen something unusual in the sky. Exactly what happened on the Pascagoula River that night is still being debated around town. Pascagoula residents, Dwight Watkins, is skeptical. Do I believe they're just coming here and picking up random people in the middle of the night? No, not really, he said. Who cares what Dwight Watkins said? Pascagoula resident Rebecca Davis said that while she wasn't there, she knows that something happened. As a child, Davis first heard about the alleged alien abduction. I just remember my friend's dad putting aluminum foil in the windows, and that intrigued me, Davis said. I asked him why he was doing it, and he said, so the aliens can't get into our brains. Davis remembers asking her grandparents about the alien abduction. I was told, hush, child, we don't talk about that. Davis said her grandmother didn't talk about it until many years later when she was cleaning out her grandmother's house and found old newspaper clippings about the alleged abduction. It piques your curiosity. You want to know, is it true? Or is there really something out there? Grant Fair said. Parker stayed silent about the alleged alien abduction for years. He did not publicly talk about it until 2018 when he released a book called The Closest Encounter. We got abducted, took aboard, we got examination, and we got put back out, he said in his book. Davis encouraged Parker to write another book, and over the next 5 years, he told his story to whoever would listen. He didn't have a lack for not talking. The man could talk, Davis said. I think he hungered for that human acceptance. A historical marker now overlooks the site of the alleged, what have you, abduction. Davis led the way for the placement of the landmark with the help of Main Street Pascagoula. She also organized the start of what's now an annual community celebration of the story every October. The community embraced him, and he needed that, Davis said. He needed some closure to that part of his life. Parker and Hickson first told their story at the Jackson County Sheriff's Department, and their accounts were recorded from the time of those recordings in 1973 Until their deaths, the story stayed the same. I just don't know how you can make things up that are in these books. The detail they're in, Davis said. That would take way more than some imagination. Hickson and Parker may not be around anymore to tell their story, but that doesn't mean the conversation will stop. I don't think his story will ever die, Davis said. The incident on the Pascagoula River 50 years ago will always be a mystery, but the legend is a convincing one for Davis and others who choose to believe.
It's one of my favorite stories from that show, Sightings. And here's another one of my favorites. The Sally House. Built in the 1800s, this mid-century home has 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The 1,200 square foot residence was originally built for Michael Finney and his family, who would live there on and off throughout the generations until 1947. 4 members of the Finney family, at different times throughout the years, died of natural causes in the residence. The property had numerous owners after the Finney family, but none would be as memorable as the Pickmans, a young couple who purchased the home in the 90s and began reporting strange, sometimes violent, occurrences in the home that were beyond explanation. In the present day, the home acts as a sort of macabre attraction for those looking for a scare, as well as a hub for paranormal investigators looking to catch evidence of spirit activity. Almost every form of paranormal activity has reportedly occurred in the Sally House, which is why it has gained so much media coverage over the last 20 plus years. Series such as A Haunting, Most Haunted Town, Unexplained Mysteries, My Ghost Story, Ghost Adventures, and Sightings have all told the story of the Sally House, Atchison, Kansas, and the paranormal entities that reportedly hang out there. The activity has been so severe at times that some believe the hauntings may be demonic in nature, or speculate that the Sally House could be home to a supernatural portal where spirits can enter as they please. Regardless of what the home harbors behind its walls, one thing many can agree on: there are some very odd things going on in this haunted house in Kansas City. People have reported seeing full-bodied apparitions, one being that of a young girl, mysteriously burning candles, some with traces of burnt fingerprints on them, and objects moving in thin air, while others have heard disembodied voices of women, men, and children at night, as well as scratching on the walls and the sound of furniture being moved around. There have even been reports of physical attacks and possessions. Though the home is referred to in modern times as Sally House, there is no factual proof that a young girl named Sally actually lived in the house or died there. There is, however, an endless supply of urban legends surrounding the story of the residence, one of the more famous of them being that of Dr. Charles Finney. The owner of the home at the time was operating in his office out of the first floor of the residence and attempted to perform emergency surgery on a little girl, Sally, which would result in her death. There are actually 2 versions of the story, one being that a woman rushed her ailing 6-year-old daughter to the home after the girl complained of severe abdominal pain, and when Dr. Charles Finney discovered that the girl's appendix was on the verge of rupturing, he opted to perform surgery on her at his residence and did not allow time for the anesthetics to take effect before beginning the procedure. The little girl died on the table. In another version of events, it is said that Sally was born as a result of an affair Dr. Finney was having with an African housemaid. When the little girl became ill, the mother brought Sally to her father, who would not allow for the girl to be taken to a hospital for fear that his extramarital activities would be exposed. Instead, he performed the surgery himself, and she died due to the botched procedure. While it's true that the tragic story of Sally could be nothing more than macabre legend, it still doesn't mean that the Sally House hasn't seen its fair share of dark events, since it was discovered in the early 2000s that there was a pentagram drawn in the basement floor of the home, as well as evidence of satanic rituals taking place on the property. There was even a luminol test performed in the home that allegedly highlighted signs of blood splatter in the closet of the master bedroom, as well as satanic sigils on the walls. A bloody sweater was also reported to be found in the attic. Tony and Debbie Pickman were a young couple recently married and pregnant with their first child when they moved into the home on 508 North 2nd Street in December of 1992. Happy and hopeful that this will be the perfect dream home to start the family, Tony Pickman and his wife had no idea that they were moving into what would turn out to be their worst nightmare. The activity seemed to start around a month after the couple moved in and was far milder than what was to come. In the early days of their time at the house, the couple only recounts small things occurring, such as lights dimming, cold spots, toys playing on their own, and animals acting strangely. After the birth of their son, the activity seemed to pick up a bit more, even keeping the baby awake at all hours. In fact, the couple discovered from a neighbor that the nursery lights remained on all throughout the night, even after the Pickmans switched them off so the baby could rest. Strange mold had even begun to form on various household items for unexplained reasons. At one point, the couple even returned home to find that all the stuffed animals Debbie had organized in the nursery were on the floor, forming a circle. At one point, after a particularly scary evening, the couple decided to spend the night at a family member's house. But just as they were leaving, Tony Pickman began feeling a burning pain on his back, and it was later discovered that he had sustained 3 mysterious scratches down his back. Shortly after the attack, the Pickmans sought the help of psychic medium Barbara Connors, who visited the home in order to get a better idea of what was taking place there. Her conclusion at the time was that the little girl, Sally, was inhabiting the home and did much of her haunting to get attention from the family. Upon Connors' advice, the couple tried their best to embrace Sally as a sort of ghostly daughter, but as time passed, the activity and the attacks on Tony continued. In one instance, during their child's birthday party at the home, a doll even caught a blaze. Finally done with living in constant fear, the Pickmans moved out of the home only 2 years after moving in. In recent years, Debbie Pickman has admitted that she now believes Sally was not the spirit of a lonely girl, but rather a demon, posing as an innocent child in order to gain the trust of the family. And wouldn't you know it, we are woefully out of time. Thanks for listening, and thanks as always, Jimmy Haunted. We'll see you again next time. God bless.